I want to know how you're going to get 3 days and 3 nights looking at this little calendar here, which you can see they're really stretching that 14th day to land on a Friday, as we can see. I still want to know how you're going to get 3 days and 3 nights from that day on the 14th to the first day of the week. It doesn't work, folks. Why can't we count to three?
Oh, gee. Oh, God. I don't think I've ever laughed this hard on air. Oh, my God. Help me. It's so ridiculous.
So what we're looking at here is we're looking at a little snippet I took of a Lunar Sabbath calendar. I'm going to get right into it. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of details. Let's pretend, just for one moment, that this is the first month of the biblical Hebrew calendar, the month of Aviv, or Nisan, if you will. We know, according to Leviticus chapter 23 and Exodus chapter 12, that Passover is always on the 14th day of the first month. Now, Yeshua was buried for 3 days and 3 nights. So we count 3 days. 1, 2, 3. Yeshua would have resurrected on the 17th day of the first month of Nisan. Here's the problem. The problem is he resurrected on the first day of the week. That ain't no first day of the week, and it's always on the first day of the week. As it says in Matthew 28, verse 1, but late in the Sabbath, as it was dawning into day one of the week, Miryam from Maģdala and the other Miryam came to see the tomb. Mark 16:9. And having risen early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Miryam, from whom he cast out 7 demons. Now, do we really need to count this out? Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Passover. Dead for 3 days and 3 nights. 1, 2, 3. Resurrected from the dead. And it's called the first day of the week. Now, some of you Lunar Sabbath people out there might say, well, I don't keep the Sabbath on the 8th day, the 15th, 22nd, or the 29th. I keep it on the first day of the week, the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th day of the month. Okay, fine. It still doesn't solve the problem that the 17th day of the month is called the first day of the week in Scripture. You can't get around that. And that's what pretty much shot that horse dead for me when somebody tried preaching the Lunar Sabbath doctrine to me. It doesn't stop there, folks. On first fruits, you have to start counting the Omer to Pentecost. Pentecost is another biblical holiday. And Pentecost in the Greek is 50 because you count 50 days to Pentecost. The Torah says you can count 7 Sabbaths and 1 day to Pentecost, which would always fall on the first day of the week. And when you use a lunar Sabbath counting method, you will never get 50 days to Pentecost and have it land on the first day of the week. It always usually goes to the 51st or the 52nd, depending on if you use conjunction or crescent. Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 through 11, there's a little spot in there that says, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. That's a commandment. You must work 6 days a week. If you're doing a lunar Sabbath, you're going to have 2 Sabbaths back to back. Or if you keep your Sabbaths on the actual day of the new moon, then you would work 7 straight days and then keep your Sabbath on the 8th day. Only in America, folks, does this doctrine even exist.
This country is so screwed up, man. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it's reaching a proportion.
And we can't even count. Here's another thing to consider. God started counting before he even created the sun, the moon, or the stars. He created them on day 4. And yet he still counted the first day, the second day, the third day. He was establishing how you count a week. Now, I don't understand how God, who is supposed to be setting the standard here, is going to be counting days when there's no moon. If you're going to use the moon to count days, then you're not even following the Creator's plan. Let's recap a little bit here. Yeshua was dead for 3 days and 3 nights, right? Passover's on the 14th day of the month, right? So why does the scripture say it was the first day of the week when he rose from the dead? It's just basic math. You look at your lunar Sabbath calendar and you'll notice that when Yeshua rose from the dead on the 17th, it doesn't matter how you keep the lunar Sabbath. The 17th of Aviv will never be the first day of the week. So there's your first faux pas that you're going to have to, I'm sure there's going to be people out there that are going to try to add more smoke screen of confusion. Oh, well, you're not counting the days right and you can't do this. You got to count the no, you got to count backwards 3 times. You got to count forward once, and then you got to look up at the sky, and if the new moon is visible, but if it's cloudy, whatever.
You know what this is called? Mega troll. This will be all over the newspapers. Sorry, I'm done.
6 days you shall work. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. You can't do that if you're keeping a lunar Sabbath. You're either going to keep 2 Sabbaths back to back, or you're going to end up working 7 days straight and resting on the 8th day. I mean, look at this. Scripture plainly says the 7th day is the Sabbath, and you can look at this little calendar chart. They've got the 8th day. They've got the 8th day as the Sabbath. Brothers, and everybody out there that keeps lunar Sabbath, even if you continue keeping lunar Sabbath, I still love you. You're my brothers. And sometimes I've noticed that it's easy to study yourself out of the faith. God loved us enough to put his thoughts on paper so that we could be closer to him. According to the Torah, even the children are supposed to listen and hear the words of the Torah being spoken. If God even wants a little child to listen, then surely it should not be this freaking complicated.